Hi guys, my name is Daniel Cao and I've been into photography for about 6 years now, and today I kind of want to show you guys where I started, how I started, and what my pictures look like from before and what they look like now. So I gathered some pictures for you guys to look at, and let's just dive right into here. So if we look at this first picture right here, this is my dog. This is Missy. I love taking pictures of my dog, and you'll see a ton of pictures later of her, but I kind of want to just share this one because this was one of the first pictures I took of her. And the first camera I actually shot with was with a Canon PowerShot SX100 IS. And it was just like a family camera. It was a point and shoot. It was a great camera at the time. And so here's another picture. Of course, everybody goes through their tree phases, taking pictures of trees. Here's a picture I took of a bay, and there is some cringe-worthy editing here, but I just wanted to show you guys so that you can see the differences from before and what they look like now. So again, just getting into photography, as you can see a signature right there. So this picture doesn't have much like going on. I know it's just a picture of an egg, but this picture right here was shot at the Texas rodeo, and it kind of sparked photography for me. And here's why. So I'm a huge fan of outer focus elements or whatever. It's called bokeh, okay? So bokeh refers to the quality of the outer focus elements in a picture. And this is the first time I discovered using depth of field to isolate your object. And this is exactly what I did here with the little point and shoot. I took a picture of this egg, and I noticed that the whole background was blurred out. And I don't know, like that, it just really captures like my eye and attention. So this picture right here is probably the one that started photography for me. It's silly, but I think this is the one. So a little bit after that, I got my first camera. Wow, look how young I look. I got my first camera. DSLR. It's a Canon T2i. And I told my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, I'm interested in photography. I kind of want to get a DSLR because they have lenses that can create these really like blurry backgrounds, right? I didn't know it was called bokeh back then. And my knowledge in photography was very limited. It was just like on auto shooting. And I actually used this DSLR to do one of my first, not really job because I wasn't paid, but event photography. So I mean, it was a huge effort thing, but it was great exposure to event photography. And here's some more album shots here. And so here's one of my first like little product photography thing. Still learning. Here's a photo of me that I took 3 times, and I photoshopped myself. I masked myself, and this is where I kind of learned more tools in Photoshop. So the picture wasn't so important. I kind of took these pictures just to learn some of the different tools that were available in Photoshop. And so we move on. Here's some more macro shots of a butterfly. So now I'm getting a little bit more knowledge about the technicality of photography, such as the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. And I did a high speed, not really high, there's no flash here, but as you could tell, the shutter speed was at 1/250th of a second, so it could capture motion. And I wanted to do like this water drop shot, and I think this was Photoshop. Like I painted this blue or something, but it was clear water, and I just took like a little droplet thingy pipette, and I just dropped it in the water, and I just kept taking pictures until I found one that I liked. So this was getting a little bit more familiar with the Photoshop tools, getting more knowledge in the technicality of photography. Okay, now here's when Calmu Productions actually, I think this was about 11th grade or 10th grade. So I started back in photography, like super back, like in ninth grade. That's when I started shooting with a point and shoot. I got my DSLR in 10th grade, but then I think in 11th grade is when I started this thing called Calmu Productions. And the T2i was the camera I owned at the time, and it was one of the first DSLRs to take video, because back then we took video on like camcorders. I think the first camera was the 5D Mark II, first DSLR. I'm not sure, but at the time, super expensive, right? The Canon 7D also, it was like $1,800, and it was like king of video at the time. But the Canon T2i also took video, and it was quite amazing what kind of quality it outputted. I started making like music videos for my sister. I started making funny videos with my friends. And so I came up with this thing called Calmu Productions. And here's a logo here. Credit to Gemma Campos for drawing this little signature down there. I remember this. But thank you for drawing that logo. And so Calmu Productions became kind of like like my kind of brand name at that time. Here's a picture I took of my sister and her best friend here. Still obviously learning about lighting. Tons of vignette here. I don't know why, but this is a white backdrop. Yeah, lighting. I totally didn't know anything about lighting. I got better in color correction. So here's a shot I took, I think in Austin, and it is very high contrast. Like, I really love the colors pop. I always made like the contrast bar in Photoshop, like push all the way to the right. It's pretty cringeworthy because, I mean, if we look at the people here, it's just completely dark. But I thought that was funny. But I was just captivated by the color of this balloon. Here's another example of over editing, and I didn't know anything about leveling or the rule of thirds and how like the horizon should be on the bottom line or the top line, things like that. I took pictures for an air show, and that was quite cool. Here's some of my favorite airplane shots. I don't take a lot of airplane shots, but these turned out pretty good actually. I really like these at the time. Here's another shot of my dog, of course. I don't know what she's doing, but this is outside, bright in the daylight. Yeah, I didn't know anything about overcast light, soft light, or anything. I just knew that, outside, there's a ton of light to use, and that's where my sharpest pictures come from, which is true, but the lighting looks terrible. Okay, more over editing here. Okay, so this is my first exposure to flash photography, and I did not buy a hot shoe flash. I couldn't afford one. It's like $300. Basically, it's the flash it's the external flash. So I took aluminum foil. My T2i has a pop-up flash. I took an aluminum foil and I created kind of like a funnel or some sort, so that the light can be trapped and bounce straight up or bounce straight to the side. And that's exactly what I did here. I compare on the left side, no flash, to right side with flash, I guess bounced on the right. And that really started something, because flash photography is a totally different ball game than natural light. Soon after, I got my first prime lens, which was the nifty 50mm f1.8 Canon lens. $100. It's a great lens to start learning photography. I highly recommend that lens. Okay, so here's like one of the first like studio, I guess, shots. I put like a white poster board in the back for my dog, and I got some clean images from flash, and this really opened up some new possibilities in photography, more experimentation with my dog here. And I think I was a junior, or I was a sophomore in high school. And actually, I had one of my first friends asked me for senior portraits, which is really cool, because I was like, what? You gonna pay me to take your pictures? So Some of my friends from high school actually asked me to take senior portraits. Of course, like the backdrop is not straight, it's not like super professional, I'm still learning and stuff. But here's a cool shot of my friend Michelle here, I think jumping and dancing. Again, still learning flash photography. Here's my sister and my dog, the wrinkles on the backdrop. I started messing around with HDR, which stands for high dynamic range. And basically what HDR is it's like on your phone, right? It makes the shadows brighter and makes the blown out things darker so that everything is like exposed, right? High dynamic range. So I started playing around with that. Here's an HDR shot of icicles, of this chair here, just playing around. Okay, so landscapes. So I went to Vietnam and I took a bunch of landscapes. Probably one of my favorite landscapes. This was back in like 2012. And this is Sapa in Vietnam. This was one of my favorite shots of the rice paddies here. And here are some of the mountains. I got a little bit better at post-processing. Of course, it's still overdone in my opinion. Like the colors are just way too, I don't know how to explain it, like way too much contrast. This was a girl in the village, and I don't do street photography. I do portrait work at the time. I took senior pictures, and street photography is a totally different ballgame. This is probably one of my favorite pictures of all time because it has so much emotion in this image. Now, the village is a very poor village. Sapa is a very poor village, and visiting that place really humbled me down and just not take things for granted back in the US. But this is one of my favorite images because it just really captures that poverty, that loneliness, and there's just so much going on into this girl, and the leading lines go into it's just, I didn't even think about composition or anything. I just thought about like taking the picture, you know. Here's more landscapes. Actually, one of my favorite landscapes. I have a print of this in my room. In high school, okay, so when I turned a senior, I started more senior grad photos. Here's my friend here. Again, using overcast. It's a lot better lighting than before. I was still learning how to pose my subjects, which was one of the hardest things. Like, I think I got the technicality down, but posing was just, it was just difficult because they were always like, what do I do with my hand? And I'm like, I don't know. So yeah. Okay, event photography. So I took pictures for a quinceañera here. It was great. Event photography is totally different. You don't have control of your subjects. You just really have to be on your feet, and you can't miss those moments. That's the difference between event photography and portrait work. Here again, learning about group photos, and the positioning of the subjects here. I mean, I could have easily just made them to move to the side and have her in the middle. I don't know what I was thinking having her do that. It's just a terrible positioning, but you know, you learn. More landscape. This was a long exposure shot, so meaning the shutter speed was very slow. Again, the horizon is not leveled, but I started venturing into the landscape world and long exposure photography. And here's another long exposure shot. This is actually 30 seconds, so you can see the water's totally silky because of the motion blur. Getting better at composition, landscapes. Here's another one. This one actually has pretty good composition and good sunset photo. There's really nothing interesting in the foreground though. More event photography. This was a graduation party, I think. And here, so in my freshman year of college, I actually got my first pro DSLR. I got the Canon 6D. I bought a Canon 6D, and it is a full frame camera compared to my T2i crop sensor. And the difference between the full frame and the crop sensor is that the full frame, first of all, it doesn't crop the lens focal distance, and it uses full frame lenses to its full capacity. It has better depth, not better, but a larger depth of field, so more bokeh and better ISO performance. I was getting more into paid work, so I thought I'd invest into a full frame body. So as you could tell, there's quite a bit of image quality change here. I think I used a flash on the left here, but again, way more bokeh, and I was just having a blast playing with a really like shallow depth of field and just isolating my subject. Like only like this part of her nose was in focus, and everything else is blurred out. Just creamy goodness. Here I took some pictures for a dentist's office. Some more professional work here. This is a shot of my sister testing an umbrella shoot through with flash. Here's more umbrella shots. Here is a 18th birthday, Filipino 18th birthday shoot I did. Shooting babies. I love shooting babies because their skin is so soft, and especially with a prime lens, you could really make it like a dreamy picture. So I started venturing into that. Here's another event, like I think it was the 60th birthday event. Family portraits, got into family portraits too. And here's a cool shot that I did actually with long exposure photography, capturing the trail of this Roman candle here. This was one of my first weddings that I helped photograph. So my friend Bao actually asked me to help him photograph a wedding, and this was one of my favorite shots that I took there. Some corporate headshots. I don't have any flash equipment, so it's very limited. More senior photos here. More landscaping. I really like this photo because of the what's it? The vanishing point is like really clear here, as you can see all the things going to that one point. It's just really, I don't know. I really like this one. Space Needle. Here's some more landscapes. As you could tell, I'm getting better at the technicality, and even, yeah, the technicality, like compositioning, exposure, editing, things like that. Here's a landscape of a Mount Rainier in Seattle. I really love this shot. Here's an interior picture of I think a wine, like a dessert wine bar in Seattle. Really cool place. Okay, so I think about 2015 is when Daniel Cao photography actually launched and took place, and this became eye-openers. I never really did anything with Calmu Productions because productions sounds like a video production, but I was more into photography. So I decided, I was like, you know what, a ton of people are asking me to photograph them for events or portraits. I'm gonna open up a business and I'm just gonna go through with it. So 2015, I forgot which month, but is when I really started Daniel Cao photography. I have business cards now, I have a website now, so it's pretty cool. Here's a picture I did at a band event, like a marching band event. Again, more senior photos here. I'm getting better at these senior photos in terms of editing, in terms of posing, in terms of interesting pictures, things like that. Again, the compositioning here is a lot better, a lot cooler background. Here's some more family portraits. Here is a sorority formals event that I did. Here is a picture that I took. So I was lacking in skills to pose people, so I decided, okay, you know what? If I can pose myself, then I can totally pose other people if I know how to pose myself. So me and my friend, we just did like a fun little photo shoot here. And posing is a lot harder than you think, because whenever you watch videos of like models posing like on YouTube and you try to learn, they're models. They do that for a living. But if you're taking pictures of like senior photos or like a bride or like a groom, they're not models. You know, they're just like the regular people who don't model for a living. So you had to tell them how to model. So I did some model practice, not really model practicing, but like posing practice, you know, putting yourself in those shoes so you can know yourself. Here's some more posing practice. It's a lot harder than you think. Here's a little cool shot that I took with the long exposure. Okay, so event photography, in 2016. I took pictures for a Goodfill event. Goodfill is for FSA, and had a lot of fun there. Definitely getting better at editing. And I kind of want to discuss about this now. At this time, I kind of transitioned into like a pastel look to my pictures, a more colorful, like a poppy, like it's not really like a realistic looking picture, but it's like very arty. I don't know how to explain it. Like this one, right? Like the human eye would not be able to see these kind of colors. So the colors are really like pungent, I would say. Again, right here. Here is a wedding reception I think I took. Here's another wedding that I took with Bao, my friend, and I learned a lot from it. Here's some shoes, some cool shoe shots. Here's a bouquet throwing shot. I really like this photo that I took at the end of the wedding. It really captures the emotion here. I know it's an almost kiss shot, but I liked it. I took an engagement session recently of my friend here, Wade, and he actually asked me to photograph his wedding, which was the first wedding I photographed as a main photographer. I had my brother-in-law help me. I was the main photographer, so I had to tell everybody what to do, constantly be with the bride and groom and things like that. So it was an amazing experience as the first wedding. Here's some bridal pictures. Like, I really like the lighting in here. As you could tell, I got so much better at compositioning. Of course, it really helped that the bride in this case was just so good at posing, and her mom like really knew how to like pose her and things like that. But yeah, she was so easy to work with, and I got some really cool photos from that. More senior grad photos. My cousin here at U of H. Here's an engagement shoot I did with a couple and a dog, and I thought it'd be pretty creative to take this shot right here. Here's a shot of them. I got into food photography too, which is a whole different ball game. It's more like product photography, you know, how to capture the angle of this product to sell it is what I was thinking whenever I take pictures of these of these products. So here's another engagement photo. This is kind of cool because it's not your typical like close-up engagement. Like usually engagement photos are like this, right, where they're just like really close up, the background's really dreamy, blown out. But this, I started getting into like landscape portraits with, you know, with the hip up portraits, and I think I really like this look here. Yeah, more food photography. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about in landscape portrait work, and this is so cool compared to just like this picture, right? Like this picture is a great picture of the person, but it's a cool background, but it doesn't really incorporate the background, whereas like this incorporates the background. So I started adding these kind of photos into my shoots, and I'm really liking it. It's really teaching me how to use the surrounding, such as this one. I mean, this is just a cool structure, and I thought it would be awesome to take advantage. Before, I didn't even I didn't even consider taking these kind of photos. I just like wanted to find some trees in the background and like blur it out, you know? Like, let's see. For example, right here, right? I just wanted to find like a tree in the background and blow it out. And most of my portraits were just blown out in the back, and it wasn't really landscape incorporated. Same thing right here, just blown out. Like what is the background in this picture, right? It's like a building and like some trees. It's not really like cool, you know? To me, a photo like this is way more memorable. It's like, remember that one time I photographed you at that one, you know, scene, rather than a blown out background. Here's a cool shot I did with the background in the stadium. And here I implemented the photoshopping copying skill that I did from this picture. So again, just doing all these things had let me learn all of these different skills to create these images. Here's some more senior photos. Blown out background, but a better choice of blown out background. And oh, I forgot to mention that these photos now, I think starting from like here, I actually switched over to Sony. I bought a Sony A7 II, and I sold my 6D. Now I know there's some controversy over selling my 6D for a Sony A7 II, but I mean, I really like the camera. Okay, so here's some more landscape portrait work. I was getting better with being creative with senior photos here. Here's more photos. As you could tell, the post-processing is very different from before. Here's a more landscapey portrait shot again. I just love the colors that are highlighting from behind his hair here. This is a cool shot of 3 girls and like 3 windows, but I think it's kind of overexposed. I'm not sure. Here's one of my favorite shots from that shoot. And here's what I'm talking about. So this is one of the most recent pictures I've taken. This is the same exact garden as this photo, you know? It's all about like finding light, and this was in the broad daylight. It's sunlight too. I mean, you can see the sun in the back, but just like using the overcast, you know, or not overcast, but the shade correctly, or using light correctly, which just drastically make your images look different. So this is where I'm at right now, guys. Yeah, so why do I love photography? I love photography because I think it's an amazing way to keep track of your memories with the, you know, with images, with video. I didn't really appreciate it before, but while I was gathering all these photos for this video, I was looking through my old photos, and I just stumbled upon so many memories. I went through so many videos. It's just, I love it. I love photographing. I love capturing memories. I love looking back on it and seeing what we came from. It really humbles me down, just like appreciating where I came from. And so, you know, I just want to give like a lot of thanks to all of you who have supported me, all of you who have asked me to photograph you, because as you can see here, I've learned so much from just like photographing people. I learned so much whenever seniors ask me, just like learning about posing, learning about light, just learning about everything. It's quite endless of the learning here. And so, yeah, special thanks to my uncle, Chusan, for teaching me the basics of Photoshop, because that really got me into post-processing. And he just really, he really gave me tons of knowledge on like camera gear, gear choice, what you need, what you don't need, you know, the right gear for the right job. It's not all about like having the best gear. It's all about having the right tool that captures the image that you want to capture. And so like now I really focus on capturing cool images rather than capturing high quality images. You know, back then I was more uh, concentrated on the technicality of photography. I was like, oh, the picture's sharp, or they like in focus or whatever. It's like, does it look good? It's like, now I really concentrate on, looking, making the image look great from the camera. And so, if I had any tips for anybody who wanted to start out with photography, just shoot. Just keep shooting. Even if it's something like just shooting random objects in your room, you'll learn a whole bunch, and it's definitely like a process that takes tons of time. It's definitely a practice thing. Practice makes perfect. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. If you watched this far, see ya.